He's won national championships in college, multiple, and Super Bowls. His name is Pete Carroll. This year was an interesting one. They had gone on sort of a linear progression. They were getting good, Super Bowl, and then injuries, O-line issues, little bit of a step back this year, not quite as dynamic. And Pete Carroll joins us from the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. All right, Pete, let me start with this, that you had this young roster, and now you've got a veteran roster. They're experienced. They have rings. A lot of them have a lot of money. Is it different to coach a young locker room than an old, experienced, in some points, wealthy locker room? Is it different for you?
It does change, Colin. It's a good question. The guys grow, and they don't stay the same. You know, their life changes, their outlook on the world shifts, and all that. So you have to be dynamic in your approach and keep going with those guys to move along to maintain, you know, the edge that has gotten them where they've arrived there. So it does shift some, and it's not good or bad. It's just a little bit different, and it's different than in the college game because guys don't get into year 6 and 7 and 8s and stuff. So there is an opportunity for players to adapt some and change some, and you got to go with it as a coach.
When you look at red flags, everybody's got to roll the dice. Doesn't matter what sport it is. You know, you got 50-some guys in a locker room, different backgrounds. Pete, are there red flags that you will tolerate, and are there red flags that you will go to John Snyder, your GM, and say, this red flag I'm not comfortable with? Because I always hear red flags. What are you comfortable with? What aren't you comfortable with?
Well, that's a big question. I don't refer to it as red flags as you are, but the guys change, you know, and things don't stay the same. And I think if you plan on them staying the same, you're going to be disappointed. So, but there are, as the changes occur, as situations occur, needs, you can look at guys differently over the years, and that does happen. I generally see guys growing and becoming more, you know, and not that they're losing something or they're changing in a negative way. I see that there's more there to be grasped if you go after it. But you got to adapt and you got to grow with them, and you got to watch those changes happen. Really, one of the parts of that, Colin, is each year you have to look at your guys all over again. You got to see them, whether it's a contract shift, whether it's they may have gotten married, they may have had children, you know, things could change in their life. They just mature and they see the world differently. You have to stay with these guys if you want to continue to grow and do it. And you watch so many of our good basketball coaches in the NBA, you know, they've been able to grow with players and change. Those players don't stay the same. And I'm sure it's the same there too. And you have to adapt with them, grow with them, and maintain expectations and standards so they can keep achieving at a really high level.
When you first came to Seattle, you were right fresh out of the college game. So you had recruited many of the players that ended up being Seahawks. Now you've been out of the college game for a few years. Is it harder for you now? Do you have to sit on Saturday nights and turn a TV on? Do you have to watch more film? That comfort level, that knowledge level of college kids, you know, you were recruiting these guys. Now it's not that way. Has it changed for you, the draft and the combine?
Somewhat, but not always did all that information help. You know, sometimes it didn't help us. You know, there was more information than normally you would have, and I can't say that it was always a great advantage. I liked it more because I had more in-depth look, inside look at guys. But so I do think it's changed them. I don't know if it's helped us or not. But I do miss that inside information that I used to have. When you sit in the kid's living room talking with his parents, you know his high school coaches and stuff, and now you see them play through college, and you have a lot of background with guys at times that you feel like it gives you an edge, but I can't tell you that it always worked out.
Do you look at the draft and say, you and John Schneider have built this thing, and you have a great track record in the draft? Do you look at it and say, okay, here's 18 players. These are wow players. What if you get into this situation, Pete, that you need an offensive lineman, but you don't need a receiver, but there is a talent on the board that blows you away? How do you reconcile need and value in talent?
That's another good question because it really comes up more than you would think. And your urge to try and fix a problem, to try to settle an issue that you have, calls for you to be really mature in that decision making because you get drawn to want to fix those problems. It's really important for us to stay with the board, to stay with our evaluations, to evaluate players for our team, not for other teams. We don't necessarily see things as others see them, and to stick with the plan. And sometimes that calls for, okay, we're going to have to solve this issue another way, and we're going to have to believe that we'll figure out a way to get that done. And that's sometimes what directs your decision making. And I know that it's at hand. For every club, it happens to you. We've seen it too, and we basically try to stay with the way the plan is, the way we thought it out ahead of time. But every now and then something jumps up, and you get a chance to do something that surprises you, and you got to make that decision. It's kind of the fun part of the draft, really, because that's when you're really on call. It's like having to make a call in a game. It's kind of where all your senses are heightened, and you're drawn on your savvy, your intuition, and all that, and hopefully it turns out right for you.
Listen, Sam Darnold's getting a lot of love. You obviously, you know Sam. It's your former program. I love Sam. I think he's a wonderful kid. I love his family. I think he's got a great work ethic. He does, at times, he's a little reckless. He had some interceptions and fumbles. And by the way, Deshaun Watson did last year in college. And I kind of look at interceptions as I like risk takers. As generally, I like my quarterbacks to be risk takers and throw the ball down the field. When you see a Darnold and everybody goes, he throws too many picks, what do you make of interceptions? Is that overstated? Is Darnold's recklessness overstated?
I think so. I think there's a lot that goes into that. The younger offensive line that he had. Look at how many times he was hit and how many times he was pushed out of the pocket compared to last year, and that factors in. He's still a very young quarterback. He's just developing. He's got extraordinary potential. He's shown so much savvy for the spot, and playmaking ability and toughness and strength and all that, that level-headedness that he shows. I think if you look at the other elements, you can start to put together the pieces of that puzzle to make good decisions there. And all of the GMs and the coaches are doing that at this time. It just depends. Like some guys, they've been throwing interceptions all their life, and that's just the way they've been, and their conscience allows them to do that. I think in this case you saw from one year to the next somewhat of a significant change in the numbers for Sam, but I think a lot had to do with that, and he can only play as good as the guys around him. So I think he's a fantastic talent, and he's got a great future.
By the way, Russell Wilson's an outlier. He's a 6-foot-tall quarterback, and he's a legend. Baker Mayfield's about
He's going to love you for that 6-foot-tall. He's going to love you for that
5'11".
You got him. No, just stay with it. Stay with it.
But it's interesting because 5'11" quarterback Baker Mayfield, that is an exception, Pete. The history shows you 6'3" and up wins. So if somebody drafts Baker, what are the challenges for you as a head coach with a quarterback that sometimes plays behind 6'7" offensive linemen?
Well, I'm not going to really talk about that one, if you don't mind, specifically. But it depends on the makeup. It's not just the height; it's how strong the kid is, how well he can run, his arm strength, the delivery that he has, all those other elements. Russell's shown you that where all of the skeptics came in thinking he's not going to be able to do this and that, he's been able to do it all, and he's thrown the ball from in the pocket. He's thrown the ball behind big linemen. He had a huge line in college at Wisconsin. Those issues were not really issues. Look at how many balls he's had knocked down at the line of scrimmage over the years in college and in the NFL. It's not a factor. And so it depends on the style of player and really the dynamics of his athleticism. What kind of a player can he become? Can he move? Does he have the strength? Does he have that great arm strength? All of those are the issues. And then does he really have that special knack how to play the game? And Russell gives you a great illustration of what it takes.
By the way, I look at cap space. I look at rosters. I saw somebody the other day that said Seattle's in a little bit of a rebuild, and I thought, I don't think you're in a rebuild. Are you in a rebuild right now?
I don't think that, Colin. We could have said that a couple of times over the years, and people would have said, "Oh, you're rebuilding this, you're rebuilding that." We don't think that. We're just trying to put together the best roster we can. We think we have the nucleus for another great run and another season coming up. With leadership in the right spots and some terrific talent, we have to always rebuild it and construct it in a manner that suits the strengths of the players and the coaches. We're at it again. So we feel like we're going for it all over again and can't wait to get started.
By the way, do you surf, Pete? Somebody told me you surf.
I'm a stand-up guy in the boogie border.
Okay. Because I'm down on the coast of Los Angeles now, and somebody said, Pete surfs. And I said, good for Pete. He would be the NFL coach, I would guess, that surfs. Pete, continued success in Seattle.
Thanks, Colin. Good to talk to you again.
Let's
do it again sometime.
All right, Pete Carroll.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.